You're listening to the AID Network.
Hey friend, welcome back to my guide to breaking into Hollywood, where I go back through the archives of Adventures in Design, over 800 episodes, and sort of grabbed out some of the ones that I felt like gave a good guide into breaking into a job in the entertainment industry. If you're like me, there's something in this world that you do, there's a creative challenge that you've given yourself that you enjoy doing, and you think, if I could just do this as a career, it would fulfill me, it would make me happy. If I could do this in entertainment, more people would see it, I would be rewarded more, the project would live on, and therefore I would always live to fight another day. That's what this series is all about. Different folks that work in the entertainment industry, an industry that I've personally always been very, very attracted to. Today is from episode 651. It's Shawn Kirkham of Skybound. That name can be confusing, and some of you would know why. Shawn Kirkham is the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Skybound. Skybound Entertainment is here in Los Angeles. They are the folks that came up with the idea of The Walking Dead. They don't make the TV show, they made the comic. They made the IP behind it. They are in the IP game of creating characters, universes, building worlds for comics, TV, or cinema. Sounds great, right? You probably have characters in your mind. You want to build something. It sounds fantastic. The only problem is it's incredibly hard to break through, and it won't happen for everyone. Shawn's interview is a fantastic look into how you can break into Hollywood, how you can be in the entertainment industry, but not necessarily be the one that's coming up with all of the ideas, figuring out the zombie apocalypse, but figuring out how to market and sell the zombie apocalypse. Shawn is in charge of the web store. He's the vision for all the products that they create, and they make a lot of products. We're talking about a web store that has hundreds, if not thousands of SKUs. The company goes on tour. They do cons. I forgot how many weekends out of the year he said. Selling to fans is a big part of their business, and this part of the business was Shawn's creation. So today's episode is kind of give you an idea of the different ways, the different spots that exist in Hollywood. So yeah, you could be around Walking Dead, but you could maybe be doing the part of it that best suits you and your personal talents. If you do have your own IP and you're making content right now, I would strongly encourage you, get into merchandising it, getting into building a fan base around whatever you do, and use jackprince.com. That's jakprince.com/circle of trust, where you can save even more. Jack Prince can help you fulfill all of your merchandise needs, help you create an entire web store. So if you're an illustrator, a world builder, and you're trying to find a way to connect with more people, I would suggest connect through merchandise. And if you do that, do it with my sponsor, Jack Prince. In the short you're going to hear today, you're going to hear 30 minutes from like an hour and a half interview. I think the episode ran almost 2 hours with my parts added into it. But what you're really going to find to be the big takeaway, and this is what I found exciting about this, is Shawn Kirkham is a fan. And he creates products for fans, right? So he kind of has the job of king fan because he gets to go out on the road, meet all of the people that love Skybound, that love their IP, that love The Walking Dead. He gets to meet these folks, he gets to hang out with them, and he gets to see what their needs are. But their needs aren't too far off from his own because he's a collector. He had one of the best offices I've seen in all of Hollywood. It just looked like you walked into a very well-curated comic shop. I mean, racks of his favorite comics, had a Lucille bat in a glass case, original artwork on the wall from artists that he had hired to do packaging. It just looked like this is a guy who's making stuff for people that aren't too far off from him. The only difference is he probably landed all of their dream jobs. This is Shawn Kirkham of Skybound. This is a fantastic interview about working in pop culture and all the different positions that there are available for us out there. And this is just a small part of the Breaking into Hollywood series, which is showcased out of 800 episodes of Adventures in Design. Sign up today at aidpodcast.com to hear the complete episode and to unlock our archive of over 800. Let's get started from AID 651. So you guys are proactively chasing down projects, not just waiting for people to come to you.
Always, yeah.
Nice.
We're meeting here and there. They go all over town. I mean, these guys Shawn and Brian first have kind of been in the industry for years, and we take meetings with a ton of people. That's kind of how the Universal thing came about, and then this recently we just announced this Amazon TV deal, which is kind of amazing that now we have, Robert has an exclusive deal with him, and then Skybound has a first look. So any of our IP, whether it's, Manifest Destiny or Thief of Thieves or, Redneck, any of these new books that we put out, this IP, we can say, hey, this is what we want to do. And if they're up for it, we'll just go do it.
And Amazon will just throw money at anything. So you're in a good spot now.
I mean, I'm sure they're listening now on Alexa or something like that. I love my corporate overlords. They are the best.
Dude, I tell you what, I've gotten so wild with the Amazon where I'm like, we need paper towels? Boom, paper towels. I had something in my teeth the other day and I ordered these weird toothpick things. And my wife was like, next time you order these, don't get the 26 pack, get a case pack.
Get the big one. You got to, yeah.
We love these, there's these weird purple things that go between all your teeth, and we just sit around TV, watch TV, and
just clean it out.
Yeah, pluck at our teeth looking for stink tooth. And I'm like, she's like, next time, get a case pack, because I love these things. It's wild how that now works with your mind.
Yeah.
So you guys have a division that's actively trying to get that out there. For people that are listening to this show that are illustrators and makers, now that you've seen the side of selling merchandise and you have coworkers that are selling the idea of IP to studios, what do you think creators should keep in mind? For a guy who wants, I want to try to crack the case and be the next Walking Dead, that's a once in a lifetime thing,
Yeah.
That's lightning striking. But you've seen where lightning strikes, and you've come to learn why your all stuff is so successful, and you walk through booths at San Diego Comic-Con, and I know you don't say this out loud because you're a nice guy, even though you got grumpy on your Care Bear, but in your mind, I know you walk past stuff like that's never going to work.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and it goes back to another thing that Robert has always kind of advocated for, is the fact that you've got to keep doing new. I think people get stuck on a certain idea and they're like, oh, this is going to be the greatest thing. I'm just going to keep at this one thing. I'm just keep doing this, and this is going to make it. But it doesn't always work.
Right.
And one way is really to kind of build off your success as a creator is if you do a title and it doesn't work, start your next one, because you're going to find a person who's going to see this new title come out there and be like, oh, that's from the guy who did that book. I never picked up that book, but maybe I'll give this a shot.
One helps out the other.
Exactly. So then that doesn't work. You do your third one. It's like, oh, that guy he'd done a couple books before. This is probably going to be a new thing I should get on. I'm going to find out about it and get it and go. So always kind of if something's not working, there's probably a reason it's not working. Find the next thing and keep chugging along.
You make a really great point, because I've done enough projects in my life, whether it's through art or music or now through the podcast, that the reason why I abandoned every other aspect of my life to do AID is because out of the gate, this project had momentum. And I think what you're talking about there is if you put a title out and it kind of just doesn't resonate, the idea that if you keep pushing the rock up the hill that it's going to eventually roll down the other side, it doesn't always work out. And I like your idea of maybe this I didn't land, but maybe your next one will, because you kind of get an early test if something's resonating with an audience or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I knew about Robert not because I read Battle Pope, but because I knew about Battle Pope. And so
you knew the legend.
I knew about, hey, there's another book. This guy had done this other book that I had heard about, and I heard it was pretty fun and pretty cool. And so I bought The Walking Dead based on that. A lot of other people do that. I mean, you hear so-and-so, hey man, that guy did work with, he did some stuff with Kid Robot. Like, oh, I'm going to check out this new thing that he did. He designed this new thing over here.
Let me break it down another way. I remember being 15, and if it had a Discord Records label on the back of it, it meant that it was going to be a great fucking album.
Absolutely.
Unless it was that Egg Hunt 7-inch, and then you're like, can I trade this in? All right. So when you look at the store, okay, you've made hundreds of products.
Yeah.
You've got something for all the titles, and it goes from, the most ridiculous to the most serious. Like if you want to put a shelf in your room and have all your favorite characters and create a battle scene, you can do that. If you want to have ridiculous like Funko and Lego looking guys, you can do that too. Or if you need to wear zombies on your feet and feel ready for the apocalypse with your printed on socks, you've got that covered too.
Socks.
So what do you look for when you put the rubber stamp on this is something that we can make? Like, what's sort of that gut check that you go through, because you've made hundreds of products?
Yeah, I think one thing that we like to do is just stuff that I know that I'm going to put on my shelf, and then I know someone else is going to
want it.
I want it.
You want to open up that box when it lands.
Yeah, and then the other side is that if we're going to work with somebody, I want to be someone that I like. And so whether it's a designer, so whether it's, Scott Tolson or George Gaspar or Nate Mitchell, like I'm going to use these guys because Jason Edmondson's a great example.
He's a hack.
So so he's the artist who did our, Shiva Force action figure paintings. And he was a guy that I loved his stuff that he did with Mondo, and I always kind of followed him on Instagram. And I'd met him once or twice through some friends, and I was like, man, you know what? Who would do an amazing thing for this G.I. Joe stuff? And I knew he did stuff for Super 7, and he's done a ton of stuff. So I was like, I want to work with that guy.
Yeah.
And so it was easy to pitch Rob, like, hey man, like this is a guy, he's done really cool stuff. I want to work with him.
He's also nailing that G.I. Joe tray card that you and I fell in love with when we were a kid.
I mean,
and part of buying that G.I. Joe was flipping around the back and studying every character on the back of that tray card.
And then trying to look at the ones that are silhouetted, say coming soon. You're like, okay, what is that? Okay, is it a gun or is that a sword?
I recognize that Destro head anywhere.
Oh man.
My wife is attractive, really attractive, and she's a brunette. And I'm always trying to figure out, like, is it worth shaving my head and going as Destro just so I can see her as the Baroness?
Absolutely.
Just
absolutely.
lose.
There's no question about
but
that.
But Shawn, I'm worried at this age, will the hair not come back? Like, it could be my last stand.
That is definitely a thing to worry about.
But to see her as the Baroness for a night, maybe that's a gamble worth taking. But so you look, when you release these products, you have sort of your gut check of you want it to land and you want to cut it open. When you think about the fulfillment, are you doing much print on demand, or are we making actual physical goods for everything?
We make physical goods, and so we've got a pretty great team over in our warehouse and a web store.
Yeah.
And so Dan and the team over there. So these guys,
is that in LA?
It's here in LA. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so we do everything pretty much local. And so these guys have able to give me projections and say, hey, like this is based on this last time we did this T-shirt, we sold X many here, we sold them at the convention, we do this much, and so we're able to kind of build out a really strong forecasting for what we're gonna do in terms of sales. And then we also fulfill to distributors too, and so like whether it's Diamond or other kind of smaller clothing distributors, like we'll do their pieces too. So we plan out, we don't do print on demand as much. We have a couple options and that we've kind of like never really kind of pulled the trigger to do. But
the thing I've never liked about it, and this is where I know that I'm meant to be a guy who works for himself because I got that gambler's mentality. Just when I see what the rollout is, I'm like, yeah, I don't like that percentage. I'd rather take the gamble and fill up a shelf of 150 of them and try to sell them the old-fashioned way. And to some degree, I think that actually buying like real stock versus virtual stock makes you trust your designs more, because you got to write a check for it. It's not like, let's just throw 1,000 JPEGs on the internet and whatever people respond to, we'll go print one and then make 20 cents on the dollar.
To your point too about owning more of the, put the money in the game and you're going to get more at the end. Like we do a lot of in-house production too, whether it's statues or action figures and stuff. And
really? You guys are capable to make that in-house?
Yeah, we have a design team, and then we contract out with some guys, and we have factories in China that we kind of partner with to make stuff. Like we did we wanted to do Saga is a really huge comic book by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and so we started working with them they kind of basically, we have a license with them to do merchandise for them.
Yeah,
since they're image creators, when they're not going to pony up the money to kind of go and do their own stuff, but we have a little bit of an infrastructure here that we can kind of like we can spend some money to make some statues, and so
we'll put up the lease on the building.
Exactly. And so we hooked up with Nate at Squid Kids, and we're like, hey, like let's do the statue. And so like Lion Cat is one of their main characters. It's this big hairless blue cat that says lying. If you're telling the truth. And so we kind of designed a statue, and we made it ourselves in China, and did all the pitfalls of like that bit of production of like fighting with Chinese New Year and samples and this and the
Nobody's
other.
making anything in February.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst time of the year, hands down. But I mean, we do that for multiple of our properties too. So Walking Dead not being the only one.
Right. I just think that there's something more exciting about getting involved and doing all that versus just if we sell them, we'll move them. Like it just doesn't seem like the sort of the same experience. So this is the thing that I've started to come to realize, and you've been lucky in life. You've got a great job.
Yeah.
And I'm going to assume that you've been rewarded handsomely for it. But it's a fluke that you're sitting on this side of the desk today.
Craziest thing in the world.
Like you just kind of wandered in the right place at the right time. And you're a bright guy and you've got good ideas, but you've worked hard. I don't necessarily believe in luck, but I believe in timing.
Yeah.
And it seems like you kind of fell in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
But when we look at this world that you and I have decided not to bring kids into, think about the American dream that your mom and dad were promised, and think about how that dream is different than the one that your grandparents were promised. Mm-hmm. I live down in Long Beach. Judge me. Everybody that's living in those houses has a head of white hair. Like they got in early when that was an obtainable thing. And now our generation, it's like, what was tens of thousands of dollars or hundred thousands of dollars is now millions. And so kind of the point that I'm getting to, as the price on everything is slid up and property's expensive, and it's just kind of hard to buy into the dream that our parents and grandparents were promised. You're a guy that's embedded in pop culture. You go to 12 conventions a year.
Yeah.
You see the fans. You are the fans. You've got rad shit all around us. You got an original Jason Freeney over there. That's a baller piece in your case that I just caught out of the corner of my eye. That guy's a genius. But when you look at all of this, I'm starting to think that for people that are below us in the age group, the millennials and Y, I'm starting to wonder if pop culture is the new American dream.
Yeah, I think it is. I think celebrity, that whole world is. I mean, my nephews are 10 and 13.
Yeah,
their celebrities are YouTubers. They're guys who watch YouTube, play video games on YouTube,
or take shit out of a box.
Unboxing stuff is huge. And that, for us, look, we grew up, love G.I. Joe. I'm making G.I. Joe or whatever. I'm making Walking Dead style G.I. Joe. Love you, Hasbro.
Congratulations. Check that one off the list.
But, and so these guys, like, this is what they watch, people playing video games online, esports, this whole thing, like, where they're going to go, it's going to be a completely different place than us.
Well, and they now have something that you and I never had in life: distribution.
Yeah.
Like they've been taught that if you get good at Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, or YouTube, or the next thing that comes along, that if you get good at that, you get a massive audience. If you get a massive audience, sponsored content.
Yeah.
And it goes on from there. So I'm just curious that, when I went to D23, I was looking around and I did like 8 hours of interviewing fans.
Oh, man.
And I wasn't a dick. I'm a big Disneyland fan. And I spoke to fans one-on-one, and I tried to understand, why are you here today dressed like Ariel?
Yeah.
Why are you here today dressed like this character? And for all of them, it was, well, if I was here in my street clothes, I'm just another person. But if I become this character, I become part of the show. So I could see that they were getting an odd sort of empowerment that guys like you and I probably got from playing in bands when we were kids,
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at these people, and then I'm looking at the massive bags and money that people are spending, and I'm thinking, if you're born and raised in Southern California and you don't see yourself buying a $900,000 home because you got to come up with $90,000 to $150,000 cash to buy into it, and you're making $55,000, $60,000, like at the end of the month, there's just some toy money left.
Yeah.
And we both know that collecting makes spending fun again, right?
It does.
And so I'm curious to see that concept through your idea or through your world of a guy who's sort of feeding that. And people watch The Walking Dead. People love The Walking Dead either as the comic or as the show, because it's, how would I respond in this world? It puts you in that moment of like, because some of those people believe that that's the best their life's ever been. And the new world is where they belong. And they like working with their hands and being that. But other people miss the old school. And so I think people are judging themselves and they get lost in that. And then you're able to carry that fandom on those 6 weeks when we're waiting for the next series to start. So I'm just curious, as a guy who creates and goes to the conventions, like, what's your read on fandom? Because it just seems like just when you think it's going to implode and it can't get any bigger, it gets fucking bigger.
Yeah, it's there. I love it. We as a company, Skybound, we have our kind of road team. And these guys go to about 25 shows a year. So that's one every other week, basically, which is kind of gnarly.
They're like a band.
Yeah.
Always on tour.
Are. Yeah. And they come back home, and we just got back from a show. It was a 5-day show. We came back, and it's like, it was one travel day back in the office and finish out the week. But when I go to these shows and travel sucks, you get tired, but when you get into it and you're on the floor and you're meeting with fans and you're like, I feed off their energy.
Yeah.
I think you had said in when you were talking to the guy from ABC about Disney going, when you take friends to Disneyland, you feed off their energy. If they're there for the first time, you're like, oh my God, like I
steal it from them.
Right?
I steal
it, right?
I steal their magic.
So I do the same thing too. When like a fan comes up and like, hey man, like, they're dressed as Negan. They come over and they're just stoked to see what we've got. Like that pumps me up.
Yeah.
Like it makes me so happy. Or to turn a fan who's never read a comic book into like, who loves The Walking Dead, like, hey, like read this Walking Dead comic book. It's different, but it's super cool. Like you're gonna love it, and get them to kind of click over and they get caught up like that. Man, it feels so good. And to make something that people like, if I make a toy or we design a T-shirt and we sell it to them and we just see them wearing around like that, just oh man, it's such a great feeling.
Don't you love when either you see this or one of your friends sends you a pic and it's one of your products in the wild?
Oh yeah,
I love seeing it in the wild. It's so good.
That's kind of the awesome thing too that we get to do with our social media team, because like we get fans sending in pictures all the time. So
right.
You're always seeing people with these T-shirts and the toys and the pens, and you're like, or I get a kick when I go to Barnes and Noble and I see one of our games on the shelf or a book on the shelf, or I travel to tons of comic shops and game stores, and that stuff is a little more prevalent there. But like even to see something I wouldn't expect to be at one of these comic shops to be in their shelf or on their display, like that's just an awesome thing.
How long did you do in the music industry?
I worked for about 8 years.
It's about how long I did too.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing Steve Jobs talk about the iPod, and I bought it day of.
Should have bought stock then.
Yeah, well, when I called my dad and go, hey, Dad, Apple stock just fell down to like $13 in 2000. I'm like, you should buy like $2,000 of this. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, oh
man.
I remind him all the time, and I wish I would have had $2,000 at that moment. But when I got the iPod, I thought, man, digital music's awesome. And then when I went to iTunes and they released the downloads, when I downloaded my first song from iTunes, I said, I need to get a new job. And I saw the writing on the wall, because my history in the music industry was working through the Coalition of Independent Music Stores. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of I was part of their online division, so I did their online marketing and stuff for 50 independent stores across America. And when these guys are going to Best Buy at 7 a.m. to buy CDs cheaper than what they can get them from the record labels, I'm like, I need to find a new job here. So for two guys that rode out an industry that's completely crumbled and way different than what it used to be, what do you think guys that are making a living off of a subscription service and off of fandom and off of content, what do you think we should look out for that was the red flags in the ship that you and I jumped off the side of?
That's an amazing question.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, good job.
I've done this a couple times.
Work on that one?
In the mirror for hours.
Oh, good. Damn, actually, it kind of sets me back a little bit. The comics industry had a really big thing. In the 90s, it was huge. And I think very similar to the record industry in the 2000s, where it was like big, and then it just kind of took a little bit of a crash. And the comic industry took a huge crash. And we hit this thing where we found, like, what is our bottom line for people? I mean, you could look at Spawn or Youngblood. They were selling millions of copies of their comics, and now the top selling book is 1/10 of that.
Right.
now we know where our bottom line is, and so the comic industry, physical comics, is able to kind of work up from there. Digital comics is the thing that's kind of out there. It's really prevalent. I read a lot of digital comics.
It's pretty nice on the iPad Pro.
It's easier. Yeah, it's easier on the iPad because I travel a lot, but I still buy and collect comic books on the side too.
Sure.
So that's still a thing. So I think a lot of that we want that tactile experience. We want that thing.
Yeah.
I try to get my nephews into comics, and they read digitally. That's what they have their phones and their iPads. That's how they consume. And so really kind of watching how that is. And I think with that generation coming up with, they don't necessarily, they're trying to get what do they collect? What do they buy? Like making sure that we can find that there's still going to be that action figure, that thing that they're going to want to get. And so how do you tie that into what they're consuming, whether it's whether they see one of their YouTubers or they own it, they play with it or whatever, or you get someone that ties into another piece of media, whether they're playing a video game. Like, does the physical thing that we want to sell come with the thing that's attached to the digital?
Yeah.
How do you tie those both in there? Is it augmented reality? Is it an in-game bonus? So if you buy this comic book, it comes with 10 credits for your mobile game,
expanding that experience, right? When I took time to sort of jump into your world and write out this interview, I thought about that question. I'm like, well, fuck, if somebody asked me that, what would my response be? And I think my response, and I love that you're looking at it from keep enriching that fan experience so that they don't get sick of it and they want to keep doing it. But I think for me, with my subscription base and trying to get people to jump on the other side of the paid wall, because, you can consume Walking Dead for free. You don't have to put a penny in it. You just got to have access to AMC. But thousands of people need more of it. They need the comics, they need the action figures, they need the merch. I think the number one thing I learned from the music industry is to go with technology and not to fight against it. Yeah. Because I think that's probably where the music industry failed the hardest.
Oh, I remember seeing the throes of they made like the dual. Do you remember dual discs at all?
Yeah.
It was like in the like 2004, 2005, where they're like, hey, let's people are going to love to buy a CD that's on the backside of DVD. They're going to have to get those.
Right. No.
Stupid. No.
They had a lot of hits and misses, but it's weird to think about this. When Sean What's-His-Face came out with Napster, that's what Spotify, Apple Music is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And they fought so hard against that for that just to become reality. Somebody just needed to figure out how to put a monetization on it. And now
someone needed to pay the record labels millions of dollars in advances that don't go to the artists.
Yes.
So that they can put their stuff on their platform. But that's a that's a whole other horrible story.
Sean, that's a minor detail of my point. Thank you for breaking it apart. But no, I mean, when I look at sort of the cracks and the folds and when it came apart, it was like Napster is exactly where we're at right now, And let's look at this for a minute. How crazy is it that you and I spend $10 a month to listen to all the music we can think of, when guys like you and I used to drop $50 a week?
Oh my gosh.
And get free records.
Dude, I started working at a record store just so I can get basically free records. Like, I will work at your store.
That's why I worked at a record label.
If I can get stuff, I just want stuff for free.
Yeah.
I'm paying $15 a CD. Like, what the hell? I think the other thing that really we need to look forward to is really kind of the building a community. And I think that's one thing. And if you look at music, like bands do an amazing thing. Like bands are accessible to their fans. Fans are connected to them. How do we as a brand make sure that we are always connected to the fans? And I think Disney is a great thing. Like D23, like, hey, we're doing a celebration for people who are huge fans of what we do.
I had an idea about D23. The idea is we could do a Kickstarter so Disney could raise enough money where they could afford to do it every year and not make it every other year.
I mean, you'd think that that's possible.
I mean, I don't know. It could be risky that first year. So if we could kickstart it for them. So I've got a Kickstarter going for D23 2018, so we don't have to wait till 19.
That's pretty smart. Although you could go to Star Wars Celebration, which is, getting a lot more Disney-fied in its
What do you think? What is your expectations, or what's your initial idea on Disney pulling out of Netflix and doing their own distribution model? What do you think about that?
I think it's really interesting, and I think if they could pull it off, it's a smart move. I mean, why have your stuff go somewhere else if you can make the platform for it to come, and you're gonna get, you're gonna reap all the rewards.
There you go, friends. Shawn Kirkham of Skybound Entertainment. Very, very nice guy. The stuff that he gave me when I was walking out of the door, I try not to take free stuff because I don't want to ever abuse the interview thing, but he gave me so many rad things. I'm like, yeah, I'll take these. Thank you so much, Shawn. And I paid him back. I sent cold brew coffee to the office the next day, and everybody there had coffee on me. So it's a give and a trade. I hope you enjoyed this. The give and the trade is, if you did, maybe go over to aidpodcast.com. Consider signing up, becoming a supporter of the podcast. This is just 6 out of 10 of these episodes out of 800 episodes that exist over in the archive. Always talking to folks about what they do, how they got there to do it in an entertaining, educational manner. Hey, I hope you had fun. I hope you're enjoying my guide into breaking into Hollywood. I'll see you here tomorrow where we explore the dark world of Alex Pardee. Thank you so much for listening.